So that's about it until he's 30, right? That's pretty much it that we see, that we hear about what Jesus is doing and how exactly he grew in strength and stature. But let's go back a little bit. Let's go back to this presentation at the temple, as it is called. Is this kind of you this morning? Just curious? Or maybe some of our friends watching from home, right? How are you feeling? Are you uplifted from a time of joyous celebration, time spent perhaps with family, perhaps with friends? Or maybe it didn't feel quite like Christmas this year. Maybe you felt gypped, like this wasn't the Christmas you had hoped it to be. Are you tired, maybe? Just plain wiped out. And we know that the holidays have that tendency, right, to bring out all these different emotions. For some of us, mountaintop, couldn't be better. For some of us, valley, how am I going to get out of this? And for many of us, right, that trip in between. Our scriptures focus today on hope. They focus on Simeon and Anna, two faithful servants of God who served for years in the temple at Jerusalem. And we see their joy when the Christ child was presented to them. Now, as I read this passage several times before, as I kind of prepare and then get things ready of what I'm going to do several months from now, and then I put it in the newsletter and then keep working. But as I was doing that, my mind just kept taking a detour. Sometimes it does that, right? Your mind just kind of goes wherever, like, oh no, I don't know you light up my life, right? That kind of thing, right? Just like, where did that thought come from, right? Well, my mind kept taking a detour around. I know what I understand is the main thrust of this, and I definitely am preaching on that today. But thinking about how many years those two people had waited for this day. Did they ever wonder, I wonder if they had been deceived by teachers at the temple about the Messiah? Did they doubt about Jesus or about God's promise or the Holy Spirit's promise to them that they would eventually see the Messiah? Did they just doubt that? This is never going to happen. I've been waiting forever. Did they doubt? And doubt infects even the best of God's servant. The the example we think of right away, right? What did you think of? When I talk about doubt and I talk about disciples, you think of Thomas, right? The doubting Thomas. And again, it's throughout the Bible that we see this. And as a pastor, I've encountered more doubt. I think I can say this. I really thought about this, but I think it's true. I've encountered more doubt during the holiday season from those who would actually be honest about their feelings, and that happens a lot because sometimes our hearts are just ripped raw during the holiday season. And so people sometimes are more open of being to themselves as well as to me. And I think that people express more doubt about their, not about their feelings, but just doubt in general, that is the feeling. And more than any time of year at Christmas or the holidays. And again, the reason is complicated. I would guess that it's rooted in lots of different things. Maybe the letdown after the excesses of the holiday season, maybe. Unrealistic hopes that get built up about the time of year. Anxiety about the coming year. I don't know. And I'm not saying that maybe your Christmas wasn't wonderful, but some of those things probably fed in a little bit in your mind. So with this in mind, let's allow Simeon and Anna, along with Thomas, to help us kind of struggle with the whole concept of doubt. And again, maybe you're there, maybe you have been in the past, maybe you will be. Something in life's going to happen tomorrow. But no matter what or when or where we are, it's okay. It's okay to struggle, and it's okay because we are working towards a better understanding and a closer relationship with God. I'm thinking that the experience of great joy as expressed by Simeon and Anna must have been preceded by these long periods of doubt, anxiety, and questions. And again, in another word, darkness. A place where, again, many of us find ourselves during the holidays at some point or another. And we even did that on Christmas Eve, is on purpose. I asked Bill to shut the lights out early. And so we didn't immediately go from lights up to all the candles are lit, everything's okay. But on purpose, and again, I don't know whether anybody kind of noticed that, or I think maybe I mentioned it, but to just kind of sit with darkness, sit with doubt, sit with anxiety, sit with, oh, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. And just allow ourselves to experience those feelings. Because again, we know the light does come through Christ, but it's okay to sit with those experiences. Actually, it's healing and helpful. Doubt is the backside of faith, though, pretty much, right? And again, I'm not judging anybody. We all go through these things. Faith is the front side of doubt. There's a backwards way of putting it, right? The two are linked together. Anyone as joyous as Simeon and Anna over the vindication of their faith, I would say, must have had a season of doubt as well. Now, here's some few situations that I've seen or thought of, or in church members over after Christmas. All these different things happen. Maybe you've had some situations in your life. A child that you thought was coming home for the holidays didn't end up being able to come home. Or there was one that did come home from college or wherever, and they created havoc the whole time, right? These are not from my family, okay? So I'll tell you, I always tell you when examples are coming from us, but this one's not. But how about the seismic shift in family relationships, right? All year long, that there are things happening, and then they become really evident, though, during the holiday season, don't they? The failure of our indulgent gift giving to bring joy to the world, because that's not what the world needs, is more stuff. And we can see more and more things, right? In our hearts, in our lives, on the news. And churches reflect that also. This traditionally, kind of like what the Sunday after Easter used to be, although now with Holy Humor it's not been, but this traditionally, the Sunday after Christmas is traditionally a lower attendance Sunday all across the country. Those who do come for worship maybe are tired, like the cat picture, right? Just like I made it here, but just barely. I'm not feeling real joyous. Yeah, I know Christmas is here and Jesus is here, but this was rough. And the last thing, and this one unfortunately is true in our family, the credit cards bills will be arriving soon, right? But Simeon and Anna are joyous. Their long-awaited dreams have come true. They needed to see it to believe it, and then here comes Mary with the proof right there, baby Jesus. And again, we see it throughout the Bible, like I mentioned, doubting Thomas, the disciple of Jesus. We remember that he was absent when Jesus made his first appearance. And again, I know that you know this, many of you, and I know that this is something we'll cover in the lectionary later, but hang with me on this, okay? Thomas was absent when Jesus made his first appearance to the disciples after the resurrection. He is the ancestor of the absentee. He expressed his feelings clearly. He felt that Jesus could not be alive. There's no possible way. And then later, when he saw Jesus at subsequent appearances to the disciples, then he believed. So the first step towards doubt, then, is to absent yourself from the people of God. Think about that. The first way of you getting to, I'm going to start doubting everything, is to be absent, to absent yourself from the people of God. In brief, to skip church. When God spoke to Elijah on the slopes of Mount Sinai, Elijah was urged to reunite himself with the faithful of Israel in order to cure his doubt. And again, I'm not saying that doubt's not okay, because it is. Again, that's how we wrestle to become closer to God, right? Just like Jacob, we wrestle. But at the same time, it can get us into real trouble. Doubt. Imagine being in charge of heating up a grill with charcoal. So I have this little visual for us, okay? So think about what you would do. Now, personally, I would throw this in the dumpster, and I would go buy a Blackstone, or I would buy like a gas grill, okay? Because I am not good at charcoal grills. But let's imagine that you have a nice charcoal grill. Many of you probably do, because I know some people say that nothing tastes the same unless they're on a charcoal grill. So let's say you're stuck with the charcoal grill, or else you're thrilled with it. You put all the charcoal together in a pile, and then you add some, is it lighter fluid? Is that right? Okay, lighter fluid, and then you light it up, right? So imagine inadvertently that a few of these coals, so they're starting to go, but let's say you bump the grill, and a few of the coals fall out of that fire. They're separated from the fire. They're separated from all the coals together that are warming up, that are heating up, that are being productive and doing what the world needs. And that in this moment would be creating a fire, right? That charcoal then is not going to heat up. It's not going to receive heat. It's not going to become a fire. The glow will begin to leave those charcoals, and it will eventually will burn out. And we as Christians are kind of like those coals. We can't be close to God being away, we can't be as close to God being away as we can be near together as God's people. It's not by accident that we are connected as a family of Christ. Remember, we read, and Paul shares with us in Corinthians about how that we are all parts of one body. And again, we'll be talking about that as we get closer to annual meeting as well. But what about doubt? I've come to the conclusion that our beliefs are more attached to our moods than we care to admit. Doubt is more an emotion, I think, than an intellectual exercise. And some people would disagree with that. Oh, no, I thought through all the different factors, and so, of course, there's scientific reason to believe such and such, so there's doubt. But I think that doubt is more an emotion than it comes from our hearts instead of necessarily our minds. And frankly, I think some people go to doubt because it's kind of a good place to hide. It's kind of a good excuse. As long as we can live in the house of doubt, we don't have to take responsibility for many of our actions or make a contribution to this world, a positive one at least. I read a story by Reverend Dr. William Self. He tells this story of that he spoke at a university campus, and when he finished speaking, a young man accosted him in the hall. And he said, I don't like what you said in there. And then Dr. Self said, well, I told him to tell me the part he didn't like. And the student replied, well, actually, I didn't hear you. I just don't like preachers. And apparently Dr. Self kind of agreed that sometimes he too didn't like preachers. But then he asked this question. He said, well, what are you? And the student said, well, I'm a seeker. Well, that's interesting. Where do you all meet? Oh, well, we don't meet. Well, what are you seeking? We're seeking truth. Okay, well, what have you read? Oh, I don't read anything in particular. He says that they went on that conversation for a short while, and he said, finally, I looked at him and I said, I don't think you're seeking. I think you're running. I think you're hiding. For you see, not to decide is to decide. And you've decided that you want to hide in unbelief. Again, from not sharing or talking with others, from not reading the scriptures or other books, from not doing something about it. If you're just saying, oh, no, I doubt, because it's no. And you're not trying to work through it, either to prove the doubt or prove the that you were wrong and walk in faith. We have to admit, though, that there is a place in the Christian life for honest doubt. Doubt is always the prelude to faith. Again, before Gideon was able to be used by God, he cried out, if the Lord is with us, why has he befallen us? Or we know Job, right, in his struggle said, I cry unto you and you do not answer. Later, he cursed the day he was born. And again, on the cross, Jesus said, oh, my God, why have you forsaken me? No one really possesses full faith until he has fought for it, until she has fought for it. Doubt is like the front porch of the house. Sometimes we have to go through it before we can get into the house. You know, there was a time in the scientific community that the earth was considered flat and the sun rotated around it, kind of like this image. And the idea was challenged by a few brave souls who dared to doubt that theory. We talk about strong faith and affirmative beliefs of scientific pioneers, but deeper examination shows that every scientific advance started with doubt, right? Galileo was right when he called doubt the father of discovery. And I want to conclude with this last idea that Jesus was a doubter. He doubted that violence was the way, so he said, forgive one another. He doubted that the long prayers and rigid dietary laws that were set up at that time were essential to true faith. So he talked about a simple faith. He doubted that the Samaritans were an inferior race. He told the parable about the Good Samaritan and a bad priest. The capacity to doubt is the prelude to faith. Strong faith always has to be fought for. So there's no such thing as a faith without tears, I don't think. A generation that wishes for faith without tears must find it really difficult to adjust to the teachings of the New Testament and the facts of life. So don't lose sight. Stay hopeful. Stay trusting. And it's okay to have those doubtful moments, but then bring yourself back. Let us help you with that. Let the scriptures help you with that. Use Anna and Simeon as an example for that. God is never on schedule, but he's always on time. God is never on schedule, our schedules, but he's always on time. Fight for your strong faith. May it be so. Amen.